Yeah. Welcome to the Own Your Healthcare podcast. I am your hostess, Jessica Ardeal, with our fabulous co-host, Lynn Misch. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Jess. How are you?
So what we're talking about, and we're just saying, let's just hit record and see what comes up of this. We want to connect with you, and we're talking about who is our audience, who is going to identify themselves in this and be able to benefit the most. And as women providers in healthcare, what if we were to focus on women in healthcare? And then you were sharing about your students right now and the things the healthcare industry is going through. I'd love for you to share your perspective and what we can do.
Well, and I think that's the part of the process is that, and we both come from, I think, unique backgrounds, and then we've combined our forces. The thing that I find interesting is that when we um, hone it down to who's going to show up, basically, who's going to come to this, what audience do we best serve in the process of delivering our message. And this podcast, this educational process, this connection to self. And in the discussion that we had prior to doing this, I find it interesting because one of the things that I often do with students is I often talk about self care. And as a provider, and I've been a provider for a long time now, and I'm grateful. But the thing that I find is I always say, where do you best use your energy? And when you're serving people, and I really look more and more, I find that life really is that energy source, right? That light source, that energy source, all of that kind of thing. But I think what's really important in all of it is that with where the healthcare system is at right now, and the reason that you and I have gotten together in this project, and this is not a replacement at all for your healthcare provider, for any of those kinds of things. This is just more education about what can someone do to embrace and care for themselves. And some of the process in all of this is that when I talk to students, I find there's a lot of burnout in the world today. A lot of it has really escalated since COVID, and where our whole culture went through in COVID, and our whole healthcare system, even beforehand, was changing, but it's even changed more dramatically because of what had happened. Because literally, all people were doing was saving lives for a couple of years, due to the circumstances that were occurring in all of this. And I'm going to apologize because I'm going to step away for 1 minute and turn this phone off.
Oh no, it's live. I don't have any makeup on today. I just have my hair pulled back. I can't figure out how to get my lake background screen back on display. So we're rolling with it. You just keep showing up and that's what we're here to do. And we thank you for showing up too. Lynn, you're back.
I'm
Just
back. I'm back. I should probably disconnect my phone so that it doesn't interrupt, but that's life and whatever, and I didn't think about it. Go ahead, finish what you're saying, Jess. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you. I wasn't on a particular tangent, just that I was explaining my background and can't figure out the lake and don't have my glasses on, but
I've got dogs barking in the background, whatever. It's like life in the moment of this. And
right.
so, and I think that's exactly what's happening, is that what I'm finding is that when I talk to students, and when I work with all different levels of students, because I work from your well, it's all different levels, your undergrads to your advanced practice folks. And what I'm seeing happening is that the system is moving fast, and they're seeing more and more patients. And part of the process, and I always tell, especially my master's students that are stepping into the role of that medical provider and that nursing provider, so they're a blended role of the NP. And what's happening is that they're seeing many, many, many patients. And the problem that I find is not only the stress in that, but the other piece is they never get an opportunity oftentimes to connect to the patient to get their story. And I think that in that, and this is the whole discussion, what group are we going to pick? Who are we going to go out? Who is going to participate in all this? what's the appropriate identification? And I think that in the world of all of this today, that people need to really be proactive in where their healthcare is at, just because there's different reasons. Communication is a big problem in our culture, not only in healthcare, but in other places. I mean, there's a lack of communication, a lack of continuity, a lack of where we are able to connect with others, because there's so much technology. Not that technology is bad, but that technology is becoming a focus of probably a replacement for many of the things, as far as how people are cared for. That was good. So anyway, I guess that when I talk with students, the one thing I talk about is self-care. The other thing I look at is, again, not appropriately getting that patient's story. And I think that's why we're here, is we're really here to listen about what people have to say. We're going to offer different opportunities to explore and teach and help, but I also think that it's really understanding that we all have stories, and that we all have stories connected to our own healthcare. And with the speed of everything moving in today's world, oftentimes going back to what's happening, I'm seeing is that people are getting prescriptions, medications, to supplement the stories that they're providing to the healthcare providers, because they're not able to address sometimes the underlying conditions of what's happening in their systems. And that's because of the speed of the system. So there, I have huge concerns about polypharmacy. I have huge concerns about different kinds of medication errors that occur because of the speed in which things are moving. And the other thing that I'm witnessing and witness is that when you care for people all the time, we all do it, if we're moms, if we're women, if we're, dads, whatever, in some capacity as a human being, you are caring for something else. And there is only so much energy that can go into that allocation of, I call it resources, right? Before you can give back and refill your energy tanks. So if you're constantly giving and giving and giving and giving that energy away, somewhere there's a disconnect in, number one, the speed that we're moving, the information that we're processing, because everything is going so fast. Um, and the relationships that need to be embraced in the whole process of being a human being. And I think in healthcare, one of the most important things is that you build that relationship with somebody else, right? I always say with nursing, I've never gotten closer or to patients. It's amazing what patients allow, with the space that they allow you to be in, if you bridge that experience, the personal space that they provide for you, the personal stories that they share with you, if you allow them to if they allow you to be there. And I think that that's a really important message, and I'm not sure how this all fits, except that I think that part of the reason that we've developed this, or developing this program, is to reach out to others, to help them understand, to help embrace their relationship with the different aspects of how they interface with not only their own health care, but the world at large. And that's really important. Stress is a big deal with all of this. I think the speed that we're moving, we're inundated by so many different things in the world today, especially with healthcare providers. I was just talking to one of my professional colleagues, and there was a cyber attack on the healthcare system that she works in recently. And that was really interesting, because they had to go back in time and they had to get into the way of providing healthcare that was actually removed from them, because everything is an electronic medical record. So she went back to sharing the stories of now they've got stacks of records and different things that are occurring, because it had to go back and get that database that was lost because of all of this, these things that got taken away because there was an infiltration into their electronic medical record system. And so you think about that, and that affects so many different levels of how we interface with the world at large, and the stress that that puts on those providers.
Right.
Um,
Because
in that,
providers are patients too, right?
yeah,
Like at
yeah,
some point you're gonna be on the other side of the clipboard, as it were. And I think there's more of an awareness that healthcare is in our hands, and empowering that idea that we can do more for ourselves than the mindset of letting the doctor figure it out. Right. So there, what else can we consider for self-care for healthcare providers? And where do you even fit in the time when things are going so fast and trying to keep up, to nurture yourself?
and that's really important. I'll oftentimes ask students, "What do you do when you go home after a hectic day?" Especially if I've been out teaching clinical, which I haven't done for a couple of years due to a fracture that I flipped off a bike and had a fracture, and so I am not working out directly in the hospitals any longer, but I did for many, many years. And the interesting thing is, I always ask them, "What do you do when you go home after a really stressful day? Do you go home and have several glasses of wine? Do you go home and exercise? Do you go home and go to sleep? How do you de-stress? What happens? How do you connect to this? Because you can only give so much. And then there's other, I look at, we call them adrenaline junkies, right? The people that are in the ICUs and the ERs, and that they're always moving, 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 because there's excitement and there's, all of these things going on, and they have to respond very quickly. And then I think about those people that actually, those providers that actually get into a lot of adrenal fatigue, right? That because of the energy that they're expending and the amount of care that they're delivering to others, that they don't often recognize the depletion that they have in their own energy tanks. How do you refill that? Some people are really good at it. Some, they've gotten better about um, putting into place, wellness days for providers at school. They have a Wellness Wednesday. And so to help nursing students, learn about different strategies that they can embrace as they're going out to deliver care. But I don't know until you really actually get into it, if you understand the capacity that you're working in, to really know how necessary those elements are that you should be putting into your own life.
And there's so
Um,
many different methods available too, right? What works for someone might not necessarily be the same experience for someone else. So what works for you? And that's where the individualizing it comes in, and let it be different than someone else's journey. Let it be different than what it looks like for the person next to you or in your own family. And let that possibility for exploration to connect with yourself. What I recently realized is no, hold on. Why does this happen, Lynn? Every time I try to tell a story, it's like
just let
what is
yourself
that
flow.
part, the Wernicke's Broca that translates thought to speech? The thoughts in here are interesting. Getting them out in words. What am I doing? What am I doing right now? This is what
Well,
happened.
I'll share. I think what's important is that what happens oftentimes is that it's like people speaking a foreign language. And it's almost like you're translating your foreign language. So you have to be able to provide something that, it may be that it's like when I have international students and they have to speak in, they think in their native language, and then they have to go into English, and then they have to go into nursing, and then they have to go into medicine, right? And there's all these different languages that they speak in. And I think that's probably part of what you're doing, is you have to process. And some of it is, sometimes we're inhibited by expressing ourselves for whatever reason. And we all do it. We're all a little bit shy in sharing personal stories sometimes. And it may be that some of that is that shyness that, if somebody told you along the way that, tell a good story. And it's like, I can remember trying to tell a good joke. And do you think I can remember a punchline to save my life? No. So I can get through the story a lot of times, but I can't deliver the punchline in the joke, right? So it's like, I'm not going to be a stand-up for by any means.
That's on my bucket list. I would love to do a comedy set.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
I also want to sing the Star Spangled Banner at a baseball game.
well, then go to Little League.
Yeah, right.
Start there. Start with a Little League game and then, grow from there and
Oh
see
my
how.
gosh, I didn't get to tell you, how we just redid the garage. While it was empty, the acoustics in there, I've never heard such, it was the most, like I want to take everything out of the garage and be able, oh gosh, I have a client calling, hold on one second. This
Okay.
is